We are Tailgate Talk. Welcome into the show. I am Matt Thomas. As always, we've got with me Kyle Winnie, Trent Williams, and Kyle Schumann coming to you to recap I don't know what to call it, wet 17-7 win over Northwestern this weekend. I don't know about you guys, but I think those conditions we had on Saturday are like the worst for football. Like just absolutely terrible.
You would say that. That's football weather.
Yeah. Well, it's
No,
especially
As a player, it's a lot of fun to play in those games.
I was gonna say it's bad when you can't hold onto the ball. But
I don't think Sean Clifford had a fun time playing in those conditions. But
walking out of the stadium, my dad was like, "Yeah, I've been a season ticket holder for 35 years, and between the game itself with weather conditions, it was the worst game he sat through."
He clearly wasn't at Illinois last year.
I was gonna say that there's some bad weather games I remember sitting through where it rained a lot harder than it did this past weekend. So there was some uglier weather games I've been
at. I think it was the weather with the game itself, like altogether, just ugly all around.
It rained during Illinois last year. The thing I can't figure out is Franklin after the game said that the conditions match the forecast that he got earlier in the week. I don't know where he's getting his information, but like I have 3 different weather apps on my phone and I was checking it like every hour since Thursday. None of them said that was going to happen.
Yeah, I sort of agree. Like early in the week, I feel like they were saying it was going to rain during the game, but not during the day. But then as the week progressed, it changed. So like, it's not going to rain as much during the game.
but even when it like, cause then it shifted at the last minute too, that it's going to rain during the game. It was like a tenth of an inch, like 0.2 of an inch. And that was like an hour before the game. And then we get in there and I saw a tweet from Ben Jones afterwards at like 3:00. It was raining an inch an hour. Like it was crazy. It was just, and like cold, you can put the parkas on, the heaters, all that kind of stuff. There's nothing you can do to make yourself dry.
Let's just say three out of the 4 of us here are not fair weather fans. I know I stayed till the very end.
Yeah.
I know Kyle did. Matt, I'm guessing you did.
Yeah.
I will say I did at halftime. I went and sat with John on the east side. He happens to be under the overhangs of the luxury boxes. And I wasn't going to watch the rest of the second half from his seats. But then I got over there and it was like dry. I'm like, forget this. Why would I go back to my seats?
Yeah, we didn't miss you.
John said today that like, yeah, any bad weather games, you guys come over because there's no one sitting in this like section or whatever. Like there's like a lot of seats were open there. So
yeah, I mean,
I never realized it, but the luxury boxes have, there's like 3 levels. Well, each level has its own overhang, and the one above it hangs out further than the one below it. So the overhang extends pretty far. So they're sort of like built inwards a little bit. So the overhang extends pretty far. It was nice.
We are like 1 row away from getting that on the press box side.
The press box overhang, yeah.
I was looking at the wind like forecast too, and I'm like, oh, it looks like it's gonna be blowing like to the east, so we should get covered. Like, no, it just poured. So like it was funny because I was in there early watching warmups, and I'm watching the quarterbacks warm up, and Clifford's standing off to the side with it's a towel draped over his hands, and then at one point, Alar comes over to like dry his hands off on the bottom of the towel. And I'm thinking, what good is that doing? Like, you've been standing out here for 5 minutes with that towel. It's soaked through. Like, it's not going to do anything. They said on the broadcast when I was watching it back that Northwestern went through half of their dry towels by the end of the first quarter. Like, it was just a miserable game.
So what I will say, I had an impulse buy this week. It was when on the way home from work, I stopped at Bass Pro Shops. I'm like, all right, I'm out of college. I'm done with this poncho nonsense. I'm getting some nice rain gear. Spent a lot of money on really good like Gore-Tex rain gear, and I sort of had like
$300-$400.
Like I had buyer's remorse afterwards, and then I was like, I don't know, that's a lot of money, worth every penny. I could not have been any more dry in that game. Poured down rain the whole time. I didn't have a drop on the interior of my clothing. It was great.
Yeah,
some people got there was a girl in front of us that she had a fleece blanket, like wearing. And it's like it looked like it weighed 400 pounds. It's like I couldn't even look at it.
The girl in front of me was in a t-shirt. Like eventually she put a poncho on. I was, oh my God, like you got it.
Yeah. Kyle afterwards came out drenched. He sat by, we have like a propane fire pit at the RV, and he was steaming. It looked like we were in a sauna. It's the steam coming off of Kyle.
Yeah.
Like we'll get into good, bad, and ugly. One of my goods changing after the game from wet clothes to dry clothes. Small little victories like that. It again, sitting through an ugly game like that, it's better after a win. So,
all right. Well, I think we covered the weather. Let's get into the game.
This is going to be a weather podcast.
Yeah, I was taken back by all this.
It analysis. Is the storyline.
Yeah.
Who wants to go first?
Go ahead, Coco. You can go first.
Yeah, you seem jumpy today, Kyle.
I'm not jumpy. I'll start with good, bad, ugly here. My good would be I think PJ Musfer played a heck of a game. I think 8 tackles. I think he had a half tackle floss or 1 tackle floss, whatever. Really clogged up Northwestern's rushing game. I think they only had like 30 rushing yards or something like that. Something where if weather game like this, you really need a rushing attack. But PJ and D line front 7 really did their job to clog the running lanes up. So I thought that was at least my good for the game.
Team leading 8 tackles. I think it's safe to say that he's back in the form that he was before he got hurt. And unfortunately, it's not necessarily gonna light up a stat line, but he's just in there clogging up holes like that 4th and goal in the beginning of the 4th quarter. That was all him and Beeman, just who also had a very nice game, but just clogging up those holes.
Yeah, and we didn't really talk about it last week, but he actually had a pretty good game last week too. I mean, like you said, I think it just kind of kicked it off, and hopefully we see this trend continuing on.
Yeah, and like Kyle said, I think this was the type of game that really played into his strengths. And some other games we mentioned, like he wasn't much of a factor, but it wasn't really his style of game. Where this was the game you'd expect him to show out, and he had a really good game.
Yeah. Yes, very pleased.
I guess real quick here, like I do like one additional good, but I don't know who's going to have it.
Was this the dry clothes or
no?
It's a third good.
Third good.
You guys are gonna make fun of me because last week I pronounced his name either wrong or correctly. You guys are making fun of me for it. But Bryce Gallagher, Northwestern linebacker, do you guys see his stat line? He had 12 tackles, a forced fumble, an interception, and he was just flying over the field. So it's not a Penn State good, but
forced fumble is we were just giving them away. So
yeah,
or like Oprah, you get a fumble, you get a fumble.
Yeah. Interception too. I don't think you could put that ball
even as an opposing player. He's got to be like tipper cap, like in a hell of a game.
Yeah,
that's because he heard you call him out on the show, and he said, "You know what? I'm gonna
play for Kyle.
I'm gonna do it for you." I saw he had like the eye black on. You know how Tebow used to have the scripture. It said KS on there.
Yeah.
So all right, Trent, what do you got?
I've been saving him for like honorable mentions the past few weeks, but it got to be my good, Barney Moore. I mean, he is in a game like that. There's a lot of punting, a lot of runs, a lot of punts. Field position is huge in that type of game, and this guy just does not miss. Matt's tweet on our Twitter account when we landed in the top 10, great tweet, probably the best tweet we've ever put out. Like a Barney Moore punt landing inside the 10. It's like, but it's so true. What a weapon. It makes the decision, like a couple of those areas where it's like, it's a long field goal. Do you punt? Do you go for it? Try a long field goal. When you have him just putting him inside the 10 like he does, I think it makes that decision a lot easier to pin him in there.
Sure. Looking up punting stats here, I feel like Matt, he is tied for 3rd in the nation with 14 punts inside the opponent's 20-yard line.
Yeah. And truthfully, our special teams, I think, is responsible for 2 touchbacks that probably should not have been touchbacks. Yeah. We sort of forced the ball in the end zone that wouldn't have went in the end zone.
It's a bad game when I'm looking up punting stats.
Yeah, I had this for later in our episode, but average 45 yards per kick, 7 kicks of 50 plus yards, 14 inside the 20, like you said, Coco, 12 inside the 10. 52% of all his punts have gone inside the 10-yard line. Obviously, that leads the nation, but he's just balling out.
Yeah,
balling out, and a very interesting dude as well. So gotta appreciate the quirky special teams players. So
do you think that changes our offensive scheme a little bit, where we know that we have this offensive weapon for punting, that like if we can be more aggressive on 3rd down, maybe like that, like, if we don't get this, like we'll just pin them back anyway?
I mean, in a game like that, definitely, especially with the way our defense is playing. So
yeah, I don't think I don't know if he doesn't have the, like Jordan Stout, man, he could boom them, like, or even like Gillikin. I mean, he, like, they had some big legs, but he's just his precision. Like he still has the depth, but his precision is just like I think it makes the biggest difference, Kyle, when it is that long field goal versus punt versus fourth down. I think the decision is a lot easier now. It's just like punt it.
The thing that got me on one of the punts that it was over on our side, coming down towards the south end zone, you could see how, because it was a fairly short punt, you could see how he got the ball to just like not rotate that much. Like you could probably like even see the laces on the ball. It was spinning that slowly. It was cool. It was cool to watch. But all right, I think that's enough special teams. Winnie, go ahead and pick Brenton Strange for the third week in a row.
No, I was actually going to take a different direction this week, which I don't know if it's yours or not, but I saw
Theo Johnson.
I saw a stat after the game that even though we turned the ball over 5 times, our defense held Northwestern to only 8 yards off of those 5 turnovers. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah,
and impressive, right? I mean, I know the weather was bad and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could just Winnie. I mean, Kyle mentioned PJ and sort of our run defense. You're mentioning that our defense as a whole. I mean, I doubt that was going to be Matt's because it's very generic, but our defense was stellar. I mean, they're the reason we won that game, no doubt.
Yeah. Can one go ahead, go.
No, Matt, you can go.
I was 1.1 yards per carry for Northwestern. 28 attempts, 31 yards, only 63 yards without sack. So if you even put in the sack yardage, 2.3 yards per carry. It was incredible.
Well,
longest
in a game like that, I mean, it's so hard to throw the ball and be efficient, right? I mean, we've seen a lot of guys that were open where the quarterback either makes an errant throw, largely whether it slipped or it's just the weather, or it's a good throw and it just goes right through the receiver's hands. Like communication, everything's tough in that weather for the passing game. So when you can't run the ball, what do you do?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, for the most part, the pass defense was good as well. Like I think it was 9 pass breakups, I think 9 or 10. You know, some of the shorter passes, especially in the second half, got us a little bit, but I mean, bend but don't break. Just keep bending but don't break. But
I think before we move to badge real quick, I just want to give an honorable mention to the offensive line. I thought wait, Matt, did you go?
No, go ahead. Finish your honorable mention. Go ahead.
I'll just say the O line, no sacks allowed, over 200 yards rushing. Again, not the prettiest game all around from our offense, but I thought if there was a silver lining, our O line played the part for us to keep us moving the ball somewhat before we fumbled it, which we'll get into. But I thought the O line all around played pretty well.
Yeah, I think it's only fair to call out Caden Wallace because we've been somewhat critical of him at times when he hasn't done that well. Had his best statistic game of the year by PFF standards, 71, 4th highest of his career. That right tackle position has been a little questionable moving, through the season so far, but he played well. So, all right, my good is I'm surprised no one thought of this, but running out the clock. We got a turnover on downs with 5 minutes and 30 seconds left in the game, and we did not give the ball back to Northwestern. 10 plays, 23 yards, 3rd down conversion, a 4th down conversion. I don't think I have to explain how this has been a problem for the last decade of James Franklin coach Penn State teams. So, it was very good.
I did think, and I think we mentioned earlier in the pod at some point, like clock management as a whole has been very good for James Franklin this year. That's something that he struggled with early on at Penn State, that it hasn't been a headline this year, which if it's not a headline, it probably means you're doing it right.
Yeah. The ability to run the ball when everyone knows that you're going to run the ball. There were some times where I was scratching my head a little bit just in the run scheme that was being developed on Saturday. But I mean, again, you can't argue with the results at the end of the day. So it's good to see. Winnie, sorry, what do you got?
I was just going to go off of that. I mean, we saw in the Ohio game that the last couple drives there that we were definitely kind of moving the ball quickly, and when we could have probably ran out the clock, but there was opportunity to kind of get the young guys more experience and practice and things, where I think in this game it's like, okay, let's just get out of here and get this done with at this point.
Yeah, I agree. We were not. That was a game where we just started at one point. We just made a decision like, let's get out of here. Let's just get out of here.
Yeah.
I definitely agree with you though, Matt, that I think it's definitely improved from last year for sure.
Yeah, pretty much any scheme I think that you could have had going into that game, or any tendencies that you had about either of those teams, you just kind of had to throw out because there's nothing that you could do. Yeah. So, all right, Coco, hit us with your bad. What do you got?
Which to choose from? I'm gonna go Sean Clifford. I'm take an easy one here. I mean, I feel like we've been pretty, I'd say moderately high on Clifford the first few games, but this one I didn't think he looked just uncomfortable back there between that, the weather playing a hand into things, and bad interception. Should have had two. The one just defender just dropped. So
yeah,
he missed some open receivers. I mean, I just don't think he, compared to the first few games, I feel like he just didn't look comfortable, and you get him put to the weather, put to other things. And but again, like, it's good to have I think it's good that he had an ugly game now before the bye week. We'll get into the bye week later on, but work on things, and it's okay to have your shit game now and move on, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But
I mean, yeah. So obviously, Kyle, that's, if you didn't take it, I would have taken it. I will say, like I talked last week about Sean Clifford deserving criticism and when he deserves it, and I'm fine with praise when he deserves it. But this week, he did not play well. I'm with you. I wouldn't go as far as to throw him in the ugly category just because of the conditions, and nothing seems to go as planned in those conditions. The interception, I think we could throw in the ugly category. That was just and those are the type of mistakes that he cannot make, right? Because what we've been saying on this podcast is like, those are the things he'll avoid with his 6 years experience that'll make up for his lack of athleticism and talent. But when you're doing things like that, it's like, all right, that's scary to me, because those are the things as a 6th year, that's where you have that edge over Drew Alar. So we can't have those. Like Kyle just said, it's, if you're going to have a game like that, that's probably the game you want it. But we have games like that by Sean Clifford moving forward. The start Drew Alar guys are going to have a lot louder voice.
Well, and I think that's where this game kind of hurt for me, because I think we all want Clifford to do well, of course, but I think weather bad regardless, if he would have came out there and played a decent game, a good game with all the weather aside, I think it would have kind of shut those people up a little bit, where now this kind of opened up the chance again, especially going into the bye week.
They'll always find a reason to talk, but go ahead, finish.
No, go ahead, Matt.
The concerning thing, you can forgive some of the physical stuff, right? Like, because it was, you could barely even hold on to a cup, let alone a football. But the interceptions seem more mental to me. Like, that first interception shouldn't have been thrown. The ball should have been thrown away, not trying to force it. And the second ball that should have been picked off was worse than the first. Like, I don't know. You can't obviously see what he was doing with his eyes on that play, but like, at least from a physical standpoint, he did not try to move that defender off that spot at all. He just locked in on that target and just threw it there. I don't even know if we saw him. That was scary. And then you saw some of the regression to those bad habits that he has had in years past, where his feet are, not set right. And like that, those are the concerning things.
If you want to see, like, I guess one ugly thing you can point out with the QBs in general, Clifford 37.9 QBR, but he did beat out Northwestern's QB, who had a 28.1 QBR. So you can just say that it was not that weather, that game in general was not a QB friendly environment.
Yeah.
I mean, it was not a day for quarterbacks.
No, it's not a day for quarterbacks, because it's not a day for receivers, right? I think if that's a dry weather game, we go out there. I think we handily beat Northwestern, but because we are so much more athletic than them. And in a game like that, you can't show your athleticism. Yeah. When it's wet like that, even if you're not even thinking about it, like, you are subconsciously, like, everything you do is slower. You're constantly thinking about slipping and falling, because when you go to make a hard turn and cut a route, like, your mind is thinking about slipping. Everything's just, the game slows down in those conditions, and our athleticism didn't get that chance to show out against Northwestern like I think it normally would, which then leads to receivers not being open, Clifford having to sit in the pocket longer, not knowing what to do with the ball. And that's when he needs to get out of the pocket to at least have the chance to throw it away, or throw it away in bounds, like at a guy's feet. The last thing you want to do is lob it up in the air. Like, if you're going to throw it away, throw it down, not up.
Yeah. And a lot of ways, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, just because it's kind of on Trent's thought. A lot of ways it reminded me of the Ohio State-Michigan game last year, where like Ohio State's clearly the more talented team, the faster team, but the conditions just made it in such a way where they couldn't use that talent and use that speed. So sorry, Coco. I just wanted to get that.
No, I'd say it's similar to your point, going like last year's Illinois game or Northwestern this year, where these teams that are not as athletic as us, they'll just slow the game down a little bit, or Wisconsin, whatever. They would rather play a slow game, beat you, like maybe they're not as athletic, but they rather play bully ball against you guys and just have an ugly slop fest game.
Yeah, I mean, it played in the North, like that's what Northwestern would dream like. That game is exactly their roadmap to beating us, because I don't think they could come close to us on a dry field. But when it comes to that game, we sort of did play in their hands. I mean, and let's be honest, there was at one point, it was almost a 3-point game. If we don't get that fourth down stop at the goal line, which you can argue, did we even get the stop? It's hard to tell, but it's a 3-point game there. But I don't know about you guys, even when they were about to score there to make it a 3-point game, there was at no point did I feel like the game was out of our control. I felt like we still controlled the game the entire time. But it played exactly into Northwestern's hands.
Yeah. Bottom line is we may have not been able to use our speed, but we want a physical game in the Big Ten. Doesn't matter who you play, that's important. And we lose that game last year. It was Illinois.
We say it every week on this, but winning is hard. I mean, it's hard. Georgia's been the dream team in the past 2 weeks. They've struggled. They got out of there with a win against Mizzou, but I mean, Georgia very, very easily could have lost to Missouri. If you watch that game, they probably should have lost to Missouri.
Yep.
Winning is hard. So anytime you can walk out of there with a victory, it's a good day.
Yep. Just to tie things in a bow with Clifford and put a little happy spin on the end. Only the 5th time in his career he's thrown at least 10 attempts and had a completion percentage below 50%. So, and we're 3-2 in those games. So not all gloom and doom when he doesn't do well. But Trent, was that your bad too, or do you have something else that you want to hit on?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think our bads are all just, we sort of covered a lot of them there.
All right, Winnie.
I mean, my bad is kind of like my ugly. I'm going to kind of split it up a little bit though. So for me, the bad would probably be almost the coaching for the running backs. After you see it kind of happen once, it's amazing that it happens 3 more times. In my opinion, you just got to cover the ball up and protect it and not lose the ball. So
do you think that's coaching? I mean, we got to this point in the season without a fumble. Matt,
first of all, can we all agree that Matt jinxed us after what he said last week about how we have
our turnover margin? Or whatever
yeah.
And we're still +6. We're still 17th in the country, so it's not that bad.
I mean, to me, 3 different running backs. That's where I kind of am almost like, I don't know.
I think
the players at the end of the day, true, but to me, the coach is like, someone's got to tell these guys, like,
I think it speaks more to just the conditions. Like,
when do you really think they weren't told that? Like, I just
it was hard. All those fumbles, they were awkward positions where even if the running backs were trying to use 2 hands, like they wouldn't have been able to do that.
2 of those fumbles, I think, were fumbles any condition. They were just perfect helmet to ball fumbles, like, and that happens. But the weather does not, like, when a ball is slippery and wet, it is so much harder to hold on to that thing.
Yeah. I will just say on a positive spin, I thought Yursich and the staff did a good job of allowing the players to rebound. Like even Clifford, when he threw that pick, the next drive goes 3 for 3, 45 yards and a touchdown. Singleton, the next drive, he comes back in, he gets 22 yards, nice catch for 11 and a touchdown. And they went back to Allen and Singleton on that final drive too, in the crucial spots. Yeah. So
Franklin typically is, especially with the running backs. I mean, it's not very common to bench a quarterback after an interception, right? You don't really see that too much, but you do see coaches bench players after a fumble, or at least sit them for a good part of the game. I don't think Franklin really had that chance because we're used to running 4 running backs. We were down to three this game, and then apparently Katron had to be suspended in the first half. So you go from 4 backs in a rotation to 2 in the first half. I don't think you really had that chance to sit a guy.
And then they all fumble, so you just got to rotate the next one. All right,
you're up next. Who do you go with then?
Yeah. So, but quickly, my bad. 3rd down offense. Weren't doing that great coming into this game, around 38%. 4-15 on Saturday, 26%. Now we're sitting around 34% on the season, tied for 106th in the nation with our good friends down in Auburn. it wasn't even just we were putting 3rd and long and passing, all that kind of stuff. We were 2 of 8 on 3rd and 4 or shorter. So not good, needs to be improved, and we're moving down the stretch. But we are 67% on the season in 3rd down, our 4th down conversion, also tied with our good friends at Auburn. So 3 and 3 on Saturday. So the late drive or the late down management conversion rate needs to get a little bit better.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, Matt, because that was going to be one of my uglies. Like when I seen that stat, it just stuck out to me like crazy. Like that is 4 for 15. You're not going to win some of these games coming up on the schedule. You're not going to win with 4 for 15. 4th down, 3 for 3, a lot smaller sample size, typically a lot shorter yardage too if you're going forward on 4th down. So take that for what you will. But the 3rd down efficiency has to get so much better.
Yeah, and it's been a chronic problem. It was an issue last year. It was an issue in 2020. That's a concern. So, all right, ugly Trent. I think unless you have another one, you kind of hit on one already.
Yep. Yeah. Go ahead, Kyle.
This is probably
go ahead, Kyle.
It's probably the biggest cop out, but like I think that entire day was just ugly. I think the entire game, the weather, everything about that was ugly. Okay, wait. Before the game,
I was gonna say I would sort of slightly disagree just because the weather held out all day until it was just exactly time to go into the game, and it's like, all right, let's start to rain.
That's what makes it even worse because you're getting like you're getting this little like, ooh, it's not gonna rain. You're feeling good, and then bam, it hits you. But I think eight turnovers in that game, and I think just watching that game is just.
That's exactly what I was like. Funny going into the game, I was like, "Ooh, it's not gonna rain. Like, let's go." But I saw on Twitter today that between the Penn State game, the Eagles game, and the Steelers game, there were 26 combined turnovers in this weekend. So not a good weekend for football in Pennsylvania.
Hey, we won. Go Birds, right?
Go Birds.
Go Birds. Only undefeated NFL team.
Yes, sir.
Who cares? Winning.
Go Birds.
Kind of like Kyle said, just an ugly game overall. Fumbles are still, I think, where I'm bummed out the most, but I think it would have been a different game. I mean, obviously you could say that about any turnovers, but if we only maybe have 2 fumbles instead of 5, it's probably a way different score.
I have an ugly that I can't confirm. I can't confirm this, but I would imagine that the expected beer sales versus the actual beer sales was pretty ugly this weekend. When it's going to rain like that, people don't want to be going down, getting out of their seats to go get beer. 1, 2, who wants to take their hands out of their nice, dry and warm pockets and be holding a beer? I seen people drinking beer. I don't think it was near the number of beer they expected to sell between the crowd size and then just the pure number of people not interested in drinking in a game like that.
Well, they said the attendance was 105,000. So
there's no.
Of course it was. Of course it was.
I would almost take the counterpoint that watching that game, I would probably have a couple more beers than I would have if it was a good game.
Well, you say that when you're nice and dry, but trust me, if you were sitting there, it's cold, wet, and rainy. There was like walking out. I see because I was in a couple sections, and by the time at the very end of the game, the stadium was empty. So like you could see all the rows, and there was beer cans spread throughout, but not near the number I think you would anticipate, largely because of the weather.
They should have started selling hard liquor, warm people up, get those shots going on underneath the concourse. But
put in the hot chocolate.
So
yeah,
to tie things up here.
One other note on that. So I heard the guy in front of us got a beer. He said it took him 20 minutes to get a beer, which that's probably not good in a crowd like that to take 20 minutes to get a beer, because I imagine on a nice day it would take way longer. 2, he said there was one person working the stand, and that same person had to do the checkout, check IDs, scan the ID, and get the beer and do the cashier all by themselves. One person. So
it's almost like they wanted to fail.
Probably not the blueprint moving forward.
Yeah. Well, I think the north end zone has like the biggest like concourse for it. So I saw some pictures of that, and look, they even have grab and go at some point, but yeah, not the best. But my ugly, no way original, no way new, because it's been going on for 2 weeks. But the ESPN cut-ins for Aaron Judge, like we got lucky where it only happened once in our game. But the thing is, it's one thing to show the game side by side, but then they put the sound on of the baseball game. So it happened during Singleton's first fumble. So if you're watching that game, like you don't know if like he was down? Like, are they going to review it? Like, what's going on? Like,
I will say because I
it's
guess it didn't bother me at all just because it's a home game. I'm not watching on TV.
I
If they start cutting it in on the big boards at Beaver Stadium, then I'll riot. But until then, as
no,
long as it's a home game, cut
ESPN
in.
needs to be shamed for what they're doing because
Yeah.
nobody cares. If someone cares, they will watch baseball.
Well,
at this point, nobody cares.
Can we do one more ugly that involves ESPN and
Yeah.
with Dish Network? I mean, for the people that don't know, this was a train wreck. So
it's back, by the way.
It is back.
Good.
Yeah,
you wrote a strongly worded letter, Trent.
Day after we needed it.
That's why I was involved in negotiations today.
Trying to finalize the peace treaty. But yeah, early Saturday morning, Dish Network and Disney's contract expired. So Saturday they had no deal, and that way no ESPN, no ABC, no nothing for Dish Network subscribers. Yeah. So
and they announced it at 3 a.m. So there was ABC because ABC is a local affiliate, but there was no ESPN, therefore no ESPN2. SEC Network is an affiliate, so there was no SEC Network, which had the Georgia-Missouri game on, so we couldn't watch that. And then I think the ACC Network is also tied to it as well. So there's the Big Ten Network, Fox affiliate, so that was fine, luckily. But yeah, not good. It's since been repaired, but a fool. I mean, we pay for Dish just for tailgating. We use it 3 days an entire month. And one of those 3 days, we couldn't watch half the channels we wanted to watch with football games. Not good.
It's a bold negotiating strategy to go dark on college football Saturday.
So I heard that like ESPN does that intentionally. Like networks will end contracts like the day of the Super Bowl. Like they do that intentionally because it's like your backs are against the wall.
Yeah, well, it probably worked out conveniently that it was also the start of a month too. So. But yeah, not good. ESPN.
Well, I'm actually happy for any Penn State fans that had Dish Network. You know, if there was one game to miss, that was the ugliest one of the season. So
far.
It's true. With this team, you never know.
So. One or actually two other things quickly. Very bad day overall for a lot of players. 15 players with PFF scores below 60, which is like below average. So no one was playing well.
Sorry to think you work for the company that grades the PFF scores.
I love it. It's great. They do have job applications.
The whole day was below a 60. I feel like that was
very true. But I thought the tackling was actually pretty good. All things considered, like even when I went back and watched, there weren't that many missed tackles. So I was happy with our defense there. Anything else that we need to hit on this game? I think I'm trying to look through my notes here.
No, not specifically. I just want to we talked about a lot of bad here, but as we said, how much can you really put into this game? I don't know. The weather was far from ideal, and like we mentioned about our athleticism not being able to shine. At the end of the day, and we said this last week, we're undefeated pretty much midway through the season here, going into our bye week. You just got to be happy. Like if you can't enjoy this. That being said, we were in a similar position sometime recently, last year maybe, and maybe didn't go the way as planned. But at this point, you can't wish and hope for and expect what might come tomorrow. Got to appreciate what we have right now. Undefeated midway through the season.
Amen.
And I say midway as our bye.
It's very sage. So yeah, let's get into the bye. So,
oh boy,
give me the stats.
Well, I mean, it's probably been one of our toughest opponents historically, all time against James Franklin.
We don't have a rival. Can we say that like right now the bye week's our biggest rival?
Yeah, great uniforms.
Honestly, I mean, if that's the case, we're getting our asses kicked. So 3-6 coming off buys against Franklin. Weird math there. It took me a few minutes to figure it out. So there was no bye in 2020 because this is we've done 9 full seasons. No bye in 2020, but 2 buys in 2014. So that's why it like works out that way. And then 1 and 2 against Michigan coming off of buys. 2 of those games were at home. 1 game was on the road, and yes, that 1 game we did lose. So we'll see. I mean, coming out of Auburn, I would have felt like there was even a chance that we could have, if we continued to play the way we played, been close to being favored against Michigan, because I haven't been impressed with what I've seen so far. Now, probably not. I still think we have a chance to beat any team on our schedule, but how we recover from this bye is gonna tell a lot. These next 3 weeks after the bye are gonna tell a lot.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have a full preview episode of Michigan, obviously. To this point in the season, though, I would say, I mean, if you really step back, right, we've had 5 games. I would argue we played less. We did not play to our potential in 3 of the 5, so more than half. You can look at Ohio and say we did. Auburn, we definitely did. But Central Michigan, we certainly did not. Purdue, we definitely did not. And this past weekend, we were far from it. So this team does have a long way to go. We are playing a ton of freshmen, so you're going to get games like this. It's always better to learn from your mistakes after a win than a loss, right? So we did have that bad game. There is a ton of stuff on film we could correct. At the same time, we got out of there with a win. So can't complain too much, but I would say like Matt talked about like resetting expectations after that Auburn game. But now looking back, it's like maybe we put too much stock into one game because 3 of those 5 games have not been like that.
Yeah, trying to go off what you said, Trent. I think having that Auburn game, having that big win, then coming back here, not really getting humbled with Northwestern, but just having that ugly, sloppy game where, this team has been tested, but we also have dealt with games where we're blowing teams out. So I think it's halfway through the season. We've been in both games with a lot of young guys playing. Like, coaches need to rally the horse and be like, hey, that Auburn game, here's where we can be to. Here's our potential. Like, we need to like learn from that and get back there. Yeah. I think just.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying not to put too much you're right about putting too much stock into Auburn. So then because of that, I'm trying to not put too much stock into what we've seen the last 2 weeks. Like having a down game is normal. And then the weather, I think you kind of throw everything out. Talent wise, again, yeah, you're right, Coco. We did see what the ceiling is with the Auburn game. It's just about consistency now.
Yep.
And, winning games like we've won the last 2 weeks will go a long way, whether it's this year or next year or whenever it comes. Like winning those tough games, ugly wins will be beneficial at some point.
Yeah, I think that's a difference in this year's team, though. I mean, if you want to compare, I think you can look at this Northwestern game as not too far off from that Illinois game last year.
It had the same vibes going in and everything.
It did, so. And the fact that we came out of this game and felt like we controlled the whole time, same with Central Michigan. We didn't play well, but not playing well, we still won by a decent margin and like playing poorly. So I think that is the difference in this team versus some of the more recent teams we've had where it just feels a little different. Like even when we play bad, our bad is still pretty good.
Yeah. So, all right. Do we want to get into a little bit of like mid-season superlatives and kind of hit around a little bit on things that we've been impressed with, things that, have kind of been a little bit lackluster? We don't need to spend too much time on this, but
I think I think looking at this, I think only Trent and I predicted us to be 5-0 going into the Michigan game, right? If I'm correct, based off our preseason.
Yeah, I mean, technically, but it's tough for me to say that because I technically predicted. I went 10-2 game by game, but predicted a 9-3 season. So it's a little bit of a cop out. But yeah, I'll take the credit, Kyle.
And Coco, even a blind squirrel finds a few nuts every once in a while.
I think my New Year's, like us going to New Year's Six Bowl, I think that's looking pretty good right now. Still, I think we're still in.
I mean, to be realistic, right? The Rose Bowl is not a playoff game this year, so I mean, even if we lose to Michigan or lose to Ohio State, if we could pull off one of those two, we're probably looking at a Rose Bowl.
I mean, because depending on how the season shakes out, there's an opportunity for even 2 Big Ten teams to go to the playoff. Like, if the winner of the conference and whoever, the runner-up is in the East has only one loss to that team, like it's possible. So yeah, we could do it even if we lose to both Michigan and Ohio State.
Real quick, just similar note. Do you think Ohio State, I think Ohio State should be the number 1 team in the country right now. I just think that they've looked the best. I think they've shown the fewest weaknesses so far of any of the top 3 teams there that, have been cycling through. I understand that they maybe didn't look stellar every week, but neither have Georgia or Alabama. I just think that they're getting knocked a little now that we know what Notre Dame is. Ohio State's not getting credit, but I don't know. I think that week 1 win, I think that takes a lot of steam out of Notre Dame's season as well when you lose like that.
Yeah,
I think Trent, you made the same argument for us, like how look at our schedule at the beginning and now it's looking less lackluster. Like, I mean, Ohio State's wins are Rutgers, Wisconsin, Notre Dame, Toledo, and Arkansas State. There's not a good win on that schedule.
Yeah,
same thing for us right now. There's not a they just look more dominant. That's the biggest thing.
So I was going to ask you guys that. I mean, I know that we haven't really performed. I mean, to everyone's standard, I'd say to a degree, like there's definitely moments where we could have done a lot better. But I also feel like we haven't really shown a whole lot. I know I said it either last episode or 2 episodes ago. I still feel like it's very vanilla. Like we haven't had to though either. Like there hasn't been a game, maybe Purdue, outside of Purdue, where I felt like, oh man, we really need to do something crazy to win this. Like I feel like even in Northwestern, Trent, like you were saying, when it seemed like, oh man, we could go, we might only be up 3 or whatever. It just feels like we still have control of the game.
Yeah. On that note, that sort of goes along with Matt's expectations here. One thing that has to get better in this, our deep ball has to get better in the second half. We have no deep ball threat. Clifford is a terrible deep ball. I mean, I think he went like 1 for 2 technically this past weekend, but a game like that, what's it matter? But we need, because our receivers have been open on some deep balls, and those are the plays that you have to capitalize, because often if you connect, that's a touchdown. So when you miss on a wide open deep ball like that, you're leaving points on the board. And those like explosive plays, I just have no faith in Clifford right now to hit that home run ball.
And even oh, sorry, you go, Matt.
I've just done the explosive plays quickly because I saw this today and it was interesting. Not sure if you guys saw Tom Fernelli from CBS Sports Cover 3 put out a tweet, 2 tweets today actually. Like I think what are they called? The matrix squares, where you have like the 4 plots. And our offensive explosive play rate is about 12%. Not very good, I think. We can throw the tweets up too and show the pictures. It's like in that lower left-hand quadrant, like pretty close to the median, but still fairly low. Again, it probably has to be the passing game. And I think it's critical to try to look at that, figure out some way to improve that going down the second stretch, because Michigan, Minnesota, and Ohio State all have more explosive play rates on offense, and also give up more or have a lower defensive explosive play rates given up. So, that's going to be the tale of the second half of the season, I think.
And that's so I feel confident in our defense, right, to sort of suppress some of them explosive plays, our secondary especially. And I feel like our run game has been pretty good at stopping those explosive plays. But it's just offensively, like we're not connecting. And maybe more specifically, like you said, Matt, on the passing game, we've seen the explosive plays from both of our young backs. The potential is there, but it's just that deep ball connection. It's just not there.
With these like midways, like superlatives and all that, who would have thought that right now at this point, like during the preseason, we would be saying like, wow, our passing game really needs to pick up compared to how like well we've been running the ball.
Yeah. So at this point in the season, which players have exceeded your expectations? Right. I would like to say Brenton Strange. I expected big things from Brenton Strange, but I feel like he's been bigger and better than the big things that I've expected. He's been the most consistent threat each game, not just looking at the box score, but his presence on the field is just huge, whether it be pushing Clifford through the end zone or for that first down and the bush push. Just some of the huge blocks he's gotten. He's gotten out in open space and gotten some huge blocks to advance, make really big plays happen. And then obviously receiving, he seems like, he's always there for a big catch when needed. He has exceeded my expectations. And then I would have to say definitely both running backs. I mean, there was a lot of hype around them, but I think we sort of thought like it'd take a little bit to see them progress. I don't think anyone thought like Singleton was going to come out and be as dominant as he was, or Katron especially. I mean, Katron was sort of like, we got glimpses of him in training camp where they're like, oh, this guy has potential. I don't think anyone expected him to play the role that he has.
I think Strange is probably on either side of the ball the only player where I could say like truly exceeded my expectations, just because we've seen 2 years of him, and kind of like, even though we knew what the talent was supposed to be, we kind of saw 2 years of game film on him, because every other player, like the only thing that's been surprising, I guess you could say, is just how fast it happened. Everything else we knew could happen. It's just like, even Abdul Carter, like you knew he could be good, but you didn't think he was going to be that good that fast. Even though he did not play well on Saturday, by the way. But yeah, that's I think Brett Strange is clear and above the most surprising player so far.
And kind of like rolling off Matt, what you just said to like a side degree there, it's like I feel like the coaching has definitely gotten better overall. I mean, even the kind of the view that I feel like Franklin and his staff has taken, where even if it's a young guy, like if you're good, we're going to play and we're going to give you a chance. And if you perform, we're going to keep giving you the chance until you show us something other than that, right? Until you start performing poorly, and then we'll mix it up again.
Yeah.
So
and that's one thing I think, like, the Drew Allard cheerleaders, they point out, like, they're like, Franklin's too loyal. He's too soft to bench Clifford. And it's like, I don't know. You see a guy like Devin Ford that James Franklin has talked so highly of all season, and he clearly wasn't getting the reps he thought. I mean, likely going to transfer just with the timing of, going into the 5th game. And they say it's academics, but, he's transferring, so you see that. And then you see these freshmen, like, I don't think we expected Nick Singleton to start in the Auburn game when he came out and technically got the start over Kayvon Lee. So we've seen Franklin do it in other areas. I don't think he would be any different. I don't know why he would treat quarterback any differently.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's just quarterback's a very tough position to play, and you need some veteran experience regardless of the talent wise. I mean, again, what from Alar have you seen other than just the wow factor of the ball coming off his hand, where you could say, oh, he definitely gives us a better chance to win over Clifford? Like, I haven't seen it yet, so.
And I think it's tough to say too. I mean, overall, I don't think the opponents we've played will be anything like we're about to see coming up in the next couple of weeks. So I think you kind of compare them to some of the teams we're going to see, and
and we're only seeing. Matt mentioned, like, we haven't seen anything from Alar. We're only seeing him in very small sample size, right, in the game. Yeah. But these coaches are seeing him take as many reps as Clifford all week at practice. I just have a hard time to believe, if he's showing out like 10 times better than Clifford and balling out every game, every practice all week, that they just wouldn't make that. There's just too much on the line. It's too big of a program to just play favoritism to Clifford. Like, they're seeing statistics that we're not during practice as well.
Saturday would have been the game where you could have made a switch. Saturday is the game where they have made switches in the past, like whether they've gone to Levis or to Tommy Stevens before that, like, and it didn't happen. So I think that says something about Alar and Clifford.
I was going to ask you guys. Obviously, we have our 3 biggest tests coming up, and we're going to preview all these games. But right now, you're welcome, Winnie. The next 3 games, what right now we think our record's going to be after the 3 games?
I'm hoping 2-3. I think 2-3, we can all come out of there and be happy. I wouldn't be surprised with 1-3. I'd be surprised with 0-3. I wouldn't be surprised with 1-3. 2-3, I'd be happy with. 3-3, I'd be shocked.
What math are you doing
to win 2?
To win 2-3. Well, what are our next 3 opponents? Are you referring to the bye? All right, so
no, I was not referring to the bye. I just said after the bye week.
Oh, okay. So I'm referring. I know what you're saying. 1 and 2. All right, 1 and 2. But I was more so looking at I'd be surprised if we got no wins. I'd be really shocked if we had 3 wins. I'd expect 1 or 2. 1 would be less preferable than 2.
I'd be most surprised, I think, if we went 0-3. A little bit like less surprised if we went 3-0. And then in that 1 to 2 range. 1's probably the more realistic point to take. But
I think again, like going off with these freshmen, I think this team is different.
I'd have to be more shocked with 3 wins versus 0 wins.
I haven't seen anything from Michigan so far that's made me like they're not the same team as last year.
I know, but could Minnesota beat us? Yes.
Yeah.
But Michigan, Ohio State could definitely beat us. Are going to be favored to beat us.
Yeah.
So that's why to me that's just saying, like, 2 of the 3 games were we're the underdog in. I would be a lot more surprised to win 3 than to win.
Well, that's
0.
what I'm saying. On the matrix of the options, I would be more shocked if we lost all 3 games than if we won all 3 games. If you had to rank those options from most shocked,
I get what he's saying.
Yeah,
but
like that.
How though? Like I would still be a lot more shocked if we won all 3.
Because I think this team has the talent to beat anybody on the schedule.
Yeah,
I think they do. Like I think
I've also seen 3 performances this year that tell me Minnesota could beat us.
Yeah, but we play to our opponents, so
we're
gonna be in it. We're gonna be in every game.
I think coming off of like just how well our young guys have been playing, I just think this team's different. That like I think we'll preview Michigan, but after this bye week, I think we knock off Michigan and Minnesota. I think we go 2-1.
The best thing we have
too.
going for us. So Kyle, you're sort of switching from your preseason.
I know, but
Ohio State was the game you were pretty confident in. That was your big take in the preseason, right?
Screw it, 3-0. Screw it, 3-0. 3-0.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Optimistic guys.
Optimistic.
The fan of me is obviously 3-0, but I'm more
if we go 3-0, there's gonna first of all, if we go 2-0 before that Ohio State game, that is going to be one of the most insane.
If we beat Michigan, Wednesday. That whiteout game is going to be the craziest thing ever.
I told Trent this. I told Trent this.
Every game will get crazier and crazier.
I told Trent this. It's Trent and his uncle's birthday weekend for Ohio State. If they beat Ohio State and we're still undefeated, I'm pretty sure like that RV is going to be like ablaze. I think there's going to have a toga party and burn down the RV and the tailgate because nothing else matters.
Collect the insurance money.
You'll be driving home after the game.
I don't know if you trust that either.
Well, hey, if you have a game against Ohio State, is Matt going to go to it?
Well, if we beat Michigan and then beat Minnesota, if we beat both of those teams, I think we have to force Matt to stay at home. It worked in 2016.
If it's a night game, I'll sacrifice.
Yeah, do we force Matt to miss the noontime Ohio State game or the primetime Minnesota game? No. Which one is that?
Real quick, because I have no clue how we're doing on time. I feel like we've been on here for 3 hours.
Very bad. We need to transition.
All right. So real quick, we talked about it briefly beforehand, but the noon game has been announced for Michigan. These Fox big noon kickoffs are going to get under my skin really quick. It used to be like those big games you could count on being that ABC night game. Like, I hate the noon games. For Michigan, I like it because it's at Michigan. I think it's an advantage to the away team because it takes so much out of like the atmosphere and building up to the game. But I think it's going to get old. All the biggest Big Ten games every week being at noon. I think it's going to get old.
I still think that the matchup and the circumstances of the game will drive the intensity. I still think last year for the Michigan game, the crowd was fairly good, even though there wasn't really much on the line. And I'm curious to see how this Ohio State game plays out because that's most likely going to be noon. Because
it's going to be good. It's still going to be a great atmosphere. But there's no way you can tell me a noon atmosphere is going to compare to what a night game atmosphere would be, or even a 3:30.
I understand it, but here's another potential advantage that I didn't even think of until today. So, at the very least, big noon kickoff show is going to be there, right? Depending on how the season shakes out, there's a good chance that game day will be there too. You get that crowd worked up into a frenzy at 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. And then for a 7 o'clock game, they have to go back to their cars and let everything ride out for 6 hours. Then that just carries into the game.
But for 90%, yeah, but you got to realize one thing, Matt. You're not like 95% of the fans. They're not going back to sit in their cars all day. They're going to get a little tuned up, which then leads to a little more rowdiness.
Listen. If we are playing Ohio State with the Big Ten title and playoff implications on the line, it doesn't matter. Everyone's going to be tuned up and rowdy. You're going to have to get there at midnight.
No, and then we run the fourth and 5 play.
I have one counter. Those 8 o'clock at night games drive all the old people that sit there with their mouths shut all game and just sit there and like, if someone stands like, I can't see, can you sit down? Those are the games they don't go to because 8 o'clock at night, they don't go to those games. And then typically you get a nice younger crowd in there. Those noon games, those people are going to be sitting there on their hands with their mouth shut all game and yelling at people in front of them because they can't see.
they're not going to want to touch that crowd. That thing is going to be a frenzy. I don't think you're going to see those people want to touch that crowd. Hell, we could play it on the hub lawn at 9 a.m. and I'm going to be going crazy if that's what that game means. So, but all right, we need to transition to pick your play because we are well over. So we need to do
let's make this quick. No discussion.
Rapid fire.
Rapid fire.
Coco, what do we got?
No, what are our standings from last week? Just do it quick.
Okay, Coco, what do you got?
I went 5-1, so now I'm 15-13-1. Matt and Trent both went 3-3. Matt, you're 17-11-1. Trent 14-14-1. You're tied with Winnie for last, who's also 14-14-1. Winnie, you went 2-4-0 in the week. All right, off to the results right here. Let's go quick here. All right, first game, really who would have thought TCU and Kansas would both be undefeated right now?
No discussion. Let's go.
Hey,
Yeah,
Kansas.
Just hit with your
Kansas.
Rank
Kansas.
I'm going
College
Kansas.
game days going there, getting it off the list. That place is going to be awesome.
As Tom Fernelli says, "You cowards, rank Kansas."
I'm on the Kansas train. It's awesome. What a great story.
Kansas by 7.
TCU.
What a bum.
Kansas with the points. I think TCU gets the win, but
All right,
go ahead.
We got Michigan favored by 22 at Indiana.
Michigan.
Indiana to cover.
I think it's a backdoor Indiana cover for that.
Mm-hmm.
Indiana's not good.
Tennessee favored by 2 at LSU. I'm going Tennessee.
Rocky Top. We gotta go with Rocky Top.
All right, Queen C for Tennessee.
Anyone else a little surprised by that spread?
I think a lot of the fan expectation or national expectation has been dictated by how bad LSU played on that national stage. They've played better the last couple of weeks, but I think Tennessee's good this year.
Yeah, so. It doesn't feel like the Tennessee of old.
You got Utah UCLA over under 64. Utah's favored by 4 in this game.
Kyle, what's the spread? Oh, you said it already. Just said it. Sorry, my bad.
I was prepared.
Try to get him.
I'm gonna go under the 64.
What time's this game being played?
I don't know. Probably in the afternoon. It's a specific time.
Who's home team?
UCLA.
Oh, well, they'll probably have 3,000 people there. So
under. I'm going under.
I'm gonna ride with Winnie.
I'm taking the over.
Let's ride with Winnie, taking the over.
I think both teams, if I'm not mistaken, are averaging 42 points per game. John God, please leave a comment and let me know if I'm right on that.
We need a one John God comment for every show.
Yeah, no one give him a shout out. John, let me know if I'm right on both teams averaging 42 points per game.
Last one, Ohio State goes to a very, very underperforming Michigan State team. That total is at 63 right now, with Ohio State favored by 25.
Oh, I was hoping this was the Coco line.
No, this is not the Coco
line.
line.
Oh, man.
Ohio State might cover this themselves.
I think Michigan State's going to cover. But I know it's not the spread. I'm gonna take the over.
I think the over. I think Ohio State might almost get it themselves.
Matt, you already said yours.
Yeah.
You took over?
Yeah.
I'm taking under. I gotta see what I can do here.
We're trying to make some moves here.
I need to. That's what you did last week.
All right. That was a very quick pick and plate segment. So
can I lead off last call?
Yep.
Lead it off.
Go.
How are the cupcakes? I was working this weekend, so
that's even a question. They're fantastic.
Yeah. What was the best part? Icing, the cake, wrappers? I don't know.
Yeah, Coco was eating the wrappers hard.
gotta get all the crumbs off the wrappers. This is because cupcakes. That was the best part of the day. That's extra good. Best part of that day. That's because cupcakes.
You didn't say anything about it, and you're good, so I was questioning it. Hence the last call.
Yeah.
There's also steak sticks too, which are also very good. But the cupcakes are pretty good.
Taco in the bag wrecked my digestive system. So, all right. Who wants to go next?
I can go here quick. We were talking about the Kansas TCU game with ranking Kansas and all that. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like the AP poll has just been a complete shit show the first few weeks of the season, with a lot of these sports writers that vote in the AP poll don't really watch all that much college football, I feel like, other than their own home team. So my question is, would you ever see the college football playoff committee start ranking teams week 1, keep the AP poll the way it is for the first few weeks, or make your own have some other alternative to
Just
ranking.
get rid of it. Just get rid of it. You don't need polling until October.
I think
you don't.
It makes it more fun.
It's so much more fun. Yes,
everyone wants which matchups are good.
Everyone wants it. It's so much more fun. It's fun to talk about midway through the season. I'm like, these teams were ranked in the top 10 and are now unranked. Like, who cares? It doesn't matter. It's just something fun to talk about. It serves no relevance.
Power rankings I'm fine with. Polling is a little dumb. So
I think polling is great because the AP polling, it means nothing. College football playoffs comes through with their own rankings. So
if we play
second part of that, Kyle, I do think the college football playoff does it right though, since that is what matters, that they don't start it until they have a decent slate of games to base it off of. I do think that's the right way to go about it.
I just think Matt, going to say how rankings don't matter. Like if a 4-1 Minnesota team came in to play us and they were ranked 25th versus unranked, I know it's like being the 25th ranked team, but it's just saying that, we're playing a top 25 matchup. Like, I don't know, it's just.
Well, Matt, if I'm not mistaken, Matt didn't say that though. Matt just said wait until October. He just said, if I'm not.
I think you need to wait a couple of weeks until you start really doing anything. Because I think it does skew everything that you see after it. Like Kansas should have been in a while ago, but
it's just natural. It's just natural though to want to rank people. Every show does it preseason, like every radio show out there, everyone ranks it. It's just a natural thing they want to do. And it's a great talking point. What else are you going to talk about all season leading up to it?
I'm sure they'll find something.
I'm fine with ranking. I just think that we need to look into like either getting some of these old AP voters out there and like maybe do some people that actually watch, football games to vote. I'm not saying screw it. Make winning AP poll voter. Maybe we'll get it.
Do.
I think more
the application format.
If they need to change it, they need to change like the deadline for when it's due. Like they try to get it in before the NFL Sunday games, so the polls are due early Sunday morning, and the people that are voting are covering teams, so they don't get a chance to digest of what's going on in the landscape. So I think that if they're gonna do it, still do it later in the week. That's another change that could be made. So, all right, Trent, what do you got?
So Wisconsin just fired Paul Chryst. So we have some big openings out there already in college football. Of the current openings, which position is James Franklin going to be the most rumored to take?
He's probably already packing his bags for Madison this bye week. I don't think any. I think if you would have, it's because of the contract.
Now we're talking rumors, right?
None of these jobs are attractive. Wisconsin lost a lot of luster.
Well, again,
there's no attractiveness for Wisconsin or Nebraska right now.
If it was rumored, the names would have been out there already.
Definitely has to be No, Wisconsin is definitely a great job to take. Nebraska has lost a lot of what made
you can't Nebraska recruit. You get solid 3 stars at Wisconsin. You can't. You got
to realize that was sort of the Barry Alvarez model, right? That's sort of what they installed there. It also isn't the model to fire a head coach at Wisconsin like they just did. That's not something they would normally do like in the middle of the season like this. I think they're modernizing a little bit. What makes State College such a great place to recruit to versus Madison? I heard Madison's one of the best towns in all of the Big Ten. Like, I think you could change it, and the Big Ten West is a joke.
Do you think Franklin would, if he did leave, let's say, and go to Wisconsin, do you think he would bring the following because of who he is? I mean, let's say Penn State.
I think Franklin could do well. I think he could recruit at Wisconsin. Yeah, the same he could
just by his name though, like in what he's
Nebraska's a little tougher. Nebraska's a little tougher. Nebraska has a lot of other stuff like that go against it as well. It's a very small market, but I think Wisconsin does have the ability to bring in those, but Wisconsin always it was very prideful on developing these walk-ons and getting those 3 stars and keeping those guys for 4 years and having a mature football team. That was sort of their model. I think a coach can change that though.
Yeah. Wisconsin needs to prove that they're going to be willing to spend in modern college football. That was the Barry
Alvarez stop. Barry Alvarez was we don't need to do those things. We could be old fashioned and develop these guys and do that.
Yeah. I don't think he's going to be rumored for any because everyone wants Lance Leipold. So the name doesn't even come up.
He keeps saying that he loves Lawrence, Kansas. That dude, he says that I feel like
yeah, you're not
Of
gonna.
course
I
you
hate
do.
this
well,
place.
he said in like numerous he said like in numerous interviews like God
If
bless
I'm
my
the head
soul
football coach at Anchorage, Alaska, it's like I love this place. Doesn't get any better.
No, but like the dude's like 60. He's an older guy, and like I think from like what some of these like interviews are saying, like he said like he went from Wisconsin Whitewater or whatever, and like slowly moved up the ranks.
Bill O'Brien told us to his face he wasn't going anywhere.
What's Bill O'Brien? The dude's what, like 45?
All right, what's up with all this age discrimination
it's
now?
Ages.
I'm just
ages,
saying
Coco.
he's 60.
Man.
Yeah. Wow, you're only as old as you feel, Coco. So
yeah.
I'm gonna
Matt feels 105.
Exactly. That's how I know that's true. That's how I know it's true, because I don't feel 25. But I'm gonna put a different spin on the same kind of topic. So earlier I asked how long Manny Diaz would be at Penn State as a coordinator. So now, given 5 games in, do you think either of the coordinators have done well enough that they would be garnering head coach interest in this carousel?
Yeah, I mean, Manny Diaz has been impressive, and I think if he didn't have that failed experiment at Miami, he would be snatched really quick. I said this earlier. I still think that failed Miami experiment is going to hold him back just a hair longer than it would if he was just like an up and coming coordinator.
To me, for both Franklin and even for Manny Diaz or anyone on the coaching staff, I feel like the team hasn't, like, if they go and, like we said, if they go 3-0 against these upcoming opponents, I think then you start to hear all the names getting thrown around a little bit more. But I just feel like they haven't.
I can't wait to clip this all this 3-0 talk, because
I know, but you know what I mean. I feel like they haven't proved anything entirely yet to kind of say
as we
these
go
guys are
1-2 with an ugly 21-17 win against Minnesota. Get smacked around by Michigan, Ohio State.
Probably more likely.
Gotta be optimistic.
Man, I can't. Part of it is probably I just can't physically process the fact that we would be undefeated through Ohio State this year. That's not.
Be grateful.
I think we would just take a week off and just do this show nonstop on a loop, which we're getting pretty close to on time right now. So Coco, what do you got? What do you think? Answer to my question.
I don't think either one has done a. I mean, both have done good jobs. I don't think anything like kind of like Trent said. Like I feel like you need to. I think Manny Diaz needs at least like one more year of like showing that he can get away from the whole Miami debacle. But I don't think anything this year. But maybe next year, if we show that these young guys can develop and perform at a high level, then probably.
Yeah, I think if there were jobs open right now that are more geographically of interest to Manny Diaz, his name might come up a little bit, like an FAU or something like that. None of these jobs, I think, really kind of fit his profile. And then your search, I think, last year kind of held him back a little bit.
Do you think Manny is looking to leave Penn State for that type of position? Like, would he leave a defense coordinator spot to go take an FAU job? I don't know. Other coordinators, yes, because it's their first head coaching job. It's like that's their step into that next spot. But like, he's been there and done that. Is he going to jump at any head coaching job to come his way? I don't know.
That's the thing. I don't know if another major program would give him a shot. That's the thing, So he might have to if he really wants to be a head coach.
So I think it comes down to, like, he will definitely get his name thrown out there and probably have the ability to go to a lot of those smaller schools to be a head coach. Mm-hmm. The question is, is he comfortable just being the defense coordinator at Penn State for a little while, or does he want to get back into being a head coach as soon as possible, regardless of the program?
Maybe Penn State turns into like a Alabama with coaching, where we'll take these misfit head coaches, put them into coordinator roles for 2-3 years, and have maybe solid 2-3 years. Like if we have Manny Diaz for 2-3 years, gives us great defense, he goes somewhere else, we'll find some misfit head coach that was offensive coordinator, Herm Edwards, someone that goes in there and just wants to get some luster back. I'm fine with that.
Soon we'll be hiring Kyle Malwini to be on staff. But
I mean, I've got some experience on the resume. So
we're gonna run the wing. We're gonna run the wing T and like a 5-2 defense.
That's scary.
Coco, if you play your cards right, you might be our starting. What were you, center?
How far away are we from the 2-hour mark? Let's just go 2 hours.
We're getting pretty close. Leave it to us on a bye week when we don't have that much to talk about to go over over an
Too
hour.
much.
Well,
We always
we're
have too
giving the
much to talk
listeners like
about.
an extended like podcast because we're recording one right now.
And
I
next,
don't think we're doing anything next week, are we?
The-
next thing you know,
Yeah.
Coco's
Oh,
going to
deep-
take him on
the
a
deep
tour of
cuts.
the apartment.
Deep cuts. Yeah, we're not doing anything next week, Coco, and then we're just gonna record without you. We're just yeah, we're gonna do something.
All 38 viewers are gonna miss me. So.
John, leave a comment and tell us whether or not you're gonna miss Coco.
Yeah.
So.
Be descriptive, please. Helps the algorithm.
All right. I'm pulling the plug on this. We've gone too long. We are Tailgate Talk. Follow us on our socials. Follow us on YouTube. Subscribe to wherever you get your podcasts. And we will be back for the matchup of the century, maybe next week. I don't know. Stay tuned. Find out. All right. See you next time. Man, I'm going to have to start drinking coffee to get through these episodes.
Pretty good. Pretty good.